Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another Chamber Check-In episode from Idaho's only five-star accredited chamber. And today I'm honored to feature Commercial Tire in our latest episode of these Chamber Check-Ins. And we have VP of Marketing and Retail Sales with us today, Adrian Rodriguez. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so glad that we have an opportunity to share the Commercial Tire story, a little bit about your background and the history of the store. I have a personal connection with Commercial Tire. One of my best friends' mom is the sister of the Schwenkfelders, Bob's. And I knew them when we were, 19 and 20 years old. And so I've been a loyal Commercial Tire customer since 1991 when I moved to Boise. And every set of tires we've ever bought, my wife and I, has been from your outfit. So there's my Commercial Tire plug. And Adrian, tell us a little bit about you first. Why don't we start about a little bit about your background and what your role is with Commercial Tire?
Yeah. Well, Paul, like you mentioned, I kind of lead up our marketing efforts and consumer retail sales here at Commercial Tire. Prior to that, and I've been doing that for about 5 years, and it's been a fun and wild ride. But prior to that, I did some adjunct teaching at BSU and Kobe, worked for John Deere marketing, traveled all over the country, did a bunch of different roles. So seen my way around each state, and that's been a lot of fun. But like I said, the last 5 years have been the most fun here at Commercial Tire and seen a lot of changes. So, and you throw 2020 and those years in, and boy, it's been a ride.
Wow. Well, for those that don't know Commercial Tire, maybe they've moved here from somewhere else and are just getting the lay of the land. Tell us and share with us the 30,000 foot view, a little bit about when they started, the territories they serve, and how long they've been in business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned the Schwenkfelder name, and so we were founded in 1968 by Bob Schwenkfelder. So it's family business for over 50 years. We've have 50 locations across 4 states. So we're in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Utah currently. We provide an array of services, like our name mentions, to both commercial customers and consumer customers. So like the tires you buy, Paul, and the mechanical you might need on your vehicles. So started off as a family business, grew that way. And some of you, if you're downtown Boise, there's the original. It's down off of State Street. So right in downtown Boise, that's where it all started in 1968. And really the most exciting thing that's happened recently was in November 2019, Bob Schwenkfelder, the founder, actually sold the company to the employees. So we became an employee stock ownership plan company, or you might commonly hear of that referred to as an ESOP. And that was really great for us. And we've joined a bunch of other ESOP companies based in Idaho. So we're with a good group of other companies too.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Adrian, and thanks for sharing a little bit about the history and that it's family owned. One thing I saw from the website is we've always focused on working hard, meeting the wide ranging needs of our customers, and employing people you can trust. And I think it's driven by the simple motto, and this is the quote: "Let our family take care of your family." I love that, and it rings true in everything that y'all do. Continuing on in the employee owned piece, help share with me, what is employee owned and what does that mean for Commercial Tire?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul, and actually transitions us nicely with, we're family, let our family take care of your family was our motto for years, right? And so we saw the transition to employee owned really as we grew the family, if you will. So now being employee owned, what an ESOP or an employee owned company really, it creates a retirement trust that holds company stock. And so then annually, or depending on how those are doled out, employees accrue those stock over time. And so it's really a long-term benefit that's really wealth building for employees. So the profits then drive the share price, and employees receive shares for free, by the way, which is really cool. You never get anything for free these days, but it's an added free benefit to employee-owned companies. So not only is that a financial benefit to employees, but it really is helpful for our customers. We typically, as we act like owners, because we are able to give better service to our customers. And then it really roots us in the communities. So, and I think that community piece, Paul, is really important to us is, the folks, let's say Yakima, Washington, to take someone outside of Treasure Valley, the team that lives and works there, those profits and that wealth is staying in Yakima as an employee-owned company. So it's a really cool model and something we're really excited about.
I love it. Well, and I'm looking forward to learning more, and I'm so glad you're here because I know you're passionate about talking about it, and it's so beneficial. We talked about a few of the advantages of being employee-owned with the shares, but maybe explain the difference between ESOP and 100% employee-owned.
Yeah. So ESOP, and by the way, you mentioned 100%. So companies can, and they typically start out a smaller percentage than 100%, and they transition eventually to 100% as that buyout happens. That's pretty typical. Commercial Tire, we were fortunate. We went 100% day one.
Wow.
So we're 100% employee owned. But you ask about that. So you hear this term ESOP thrown around, and I don't like acronyms because half the time I can't remember them. So I had to write down, in fact, I looked up, what does ESOP mean? Oh, yeah, it's an employee stock ownership plan. But that's really, to me, it's all the financial piece. It's the model, right? It's the things that we look at, EBITDA and EBITDA, and what is that share price calculation? Who are the people who are doing the valuations and the trustees? It's all that financial mechanisms and that business model. But to me, that's so different than what we're really trying to drive here and is with our employees is that employee ownership mindset. So how do you think like an owner? How do you act like an owner? And to me, those are two different things. You can't have one without the other, obviously, but we talk more about, and we're passionate really about employee ownership and that mindset rather than ESOP and the financials.
Okay, that helps me understand it more. You feel like you're part of the family and you have a sense of ownership. I used to think of it when I worked for Albertsons, our store director, when I was writing grocery orders, he's like, pretend it's your checkbook writing for these groceries, right? And that made me think about, well, do I need all of this stuff that I'm ordering, or can I get it just in time, right? It changed the mindset, and I'm glad you brought that up. Why did Commercial Tire decide to go employee owned?
That's a great question. And I talked to Bob about it because there's all kinds of different options, right? You can sell to, another tire dealer. You could sell to private equity. You could do lots of different things. But employee ownership really is a great way to kind of preserve the company, and its mission, vision, and the culture that we've built here, over the last 50 plus years. And that was something that he was real concerned about maintaining. And it's not necessarily about the bottom line because, I'm sure at times you might have got a premium had you sold to a private equity firm or something like that. But again, I think a lot of it draws back to really being rooted in our communities and being a piece of that because, we're there at the T-ball games alongside everyone else, and especially a lot of the smaller communities we're in, we'll see you at the grocery store.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. And I think that's an interesting point you mentioned about the Albertsons example, Paul, because we often, we hire a new employee, maybe you're a brand new tire tech, fairly starting out, right at the front lines of Commercial Tire. Well, what does this whole ESOP and employee ownership mean to me? Well, we like to say, even if we just thought about how do I save 15 minutes a day, or how do I reduce waste just a little bit? Because I can do that as a tire tech. I can do that as the leader of the marketing. We can do that as a president of the company. And you think about what's the value that adds back to the company and ultimately our customers if 800 employees are doing that, right? 15 minutes a day over 350 days, that's real. And so that's kind of how we've liked to engage, our employee owners.
You had mentioned that you're getting together with other employee-owned companies, and I had a conversation with a Tate's rental employee maybe last year, and they were excited that they went employee-owned, And I showed up on a Saturday and I saw that they weren't open, and I was trying to fill my propane tanks and get some tools. And the next time I went back on a Monday, I was able to go during my lunch hour. I said, "You guys aren't open on Saturdays anymore." He's like, "No, we as an employee-owned company decided not to be open on the weekends." But as you can tell, now they're open on Saturdays because I think they discovered as an employee-owned that, hey, we do a considerable amount of our business on that Saturday.
Yeah. No, that's kind of a funny story. And one of the first questions we got, so we say, okay, guys, now we're employee owned, and by the way, 100%. It's like, okay, now I get a vote on everything we do. Right. Right from the tire tech all the way up to the president. It's like, oh no, we're going to close early this day, or whatever it may be. But that's one of the keys to employee ownership. It's really so it expands that decision making. And really, so what it does is foster idea generation, because now you have people, acting as though they're employees. So they see something that can be improved or fixed, a broken process, then generally they feel in employee-owned companies, and a piece of that's culture, but that they can elevate that. And, there's all different types of ways we can do it, but no, they don't get to vote on every single thing that we do. And in fact, not even do us as senior leaders get to make all the decisions, because now we have a board, right? And we have a trustee, and the board and the trustee are in place, to really represent the employee owners. So we're not going to make any huge strategic decisions either, without having put through the litmus test.
And I love that everybody's bought into the same mission and vision now. And, when you put the audacious goal in front of you and everybody's on the same page, it's not so audacious anymore, right? It's more achievable and measurable. And I think if you have everybody aligned well on that end goal, the process is better and the goals, more achievable. I have some more questions here as we're going. What does this mean to the community? Commercial Tire being employee owned?
Yeah. So, and I kind of touched on that a little bit, but I think what it means for us is, and you can look at all the statistics. There's some very big organizations that, if anyone's interested in learning more, you can look up the NCEO or TEA. And both of those, they are acronyms, but they'll pop up, and those are big organizations that are really help drive this employee ownership wave across the country. But I really think that when we look at community impact, having the wealth go back to the community is the biggest piece. Like I said, so the manager, assistant manager, tire techs, region manager, salespeople in Yakima, Washington, we'll stick with that example. As that wealth builds through the shares that they're given annually, that money stays in Yakima, right? Instead, if you had an owner that was offsite, or maybe a private equity firm, or even publicly held, that money often funnels into different communities, but it goes right back into those communities that we operate in. So it's kind of a great cycle, I think, to help grow and build our communities that we live in.
And I love that you mentioned Little League, because it's that's one of those things where community gathers a lot. And you see the Commercial Tire banners out on the Little League fields, and those other businesses that are supporting the community in that fashion. And I couldn't think of a better example than Little League baseball. So thanks for bringing that up. Is there any best practices that you could share for maybe some other companies that are listening or might catch this about being an employee-owned company? What would you say are some hurdles and things that you've learned along the way?
Well, the first thing I would say is if anyone's listening that's thinking of potentially this business model, do some research. It's really a great option. And the reason I say that, Paul, is there's a lot of baby boomers who are retiring out of businesses that they own that don't have an exit plan. Maybe the family doesn't want to take over. Maybe they don't have family and they're not in a position. They don't want to sell out. So it's actually a really great option. So if you're one of those people, I'd say take a look at it first. It's really great. And I think, we started this journey in late 2019. So we're relatively new at this, and you mentioned some of the other companies in the Treasure Valley. Well, so Winco is probably the biggest, most recognizable employee-owned company that we could all relate to. You have others like Franklin Building Supply and Norco, and they're farther along that journey. But really, I think, it's about talking about it frequently at all levels of the company, creating that excitement. We just had our annual share price reveal this last, it was actually Cinco de Mayo. So we had a fun piñata breaking with the new share price. So
cool.
Wore some sombreros, had a contest of guac, see who made the best one. So things like that, I think is really helps drive that culture and listening to your employees. And I think whether you're employee owned or not, that's key, obviously. But as an employee-owned company, it's key for us to really create that culture and drive those ideas back in, because as we do that, we'll be better off at the end.
Wow. Okay, so do some research, and if you're coming to that time in your career where you're wondering what you're going to do with your company, I think employee-owned is a great thing to learn about, and maybe give Adrian a call. And you mentioned Franklin Building Supply, Norco, and Tate's and some others, which are all great chamber members, by the way. And I do want to shout out that Commercial Tire has been a chamber member for a few decades, as well as recently have invested in our board of advisors level of membership, which actually gives your stores an opportunity to take advantage of the chamber member programs for every employee. So I just want to thank you for that, Adrian. And is there any closing remarks while I have you today?
Oh, no, I really appreciate the time, Paul. And I'm so excited that you gave us the opportunity to talk a little bit about Commercial Tire and especially employee ownership. Those companies you mentioned, and there's several others. We've kind of created this little community. So we're really looking forward to growing that. But beyond employee ownership and Commercial Tire, we're just happy to be a part of the chamber and your events. And so I appreciate the time.
Awesome. And if you still have your winter tires on, it's time to go get those swapped out.
Absolutely. We can do that for you.
Adrian, have a great weekend. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your membership. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, Paul. Thank you.